Hello and welcome to the Built On Air podcast. Built On Air is a regular podcast where we talk with everyday people and learn about the amazing things they are doing with Airtable. Today's podcast is sponsored by Openside, the leading solutions provider for Airtable customers. Check out openside.com to learn more about their products and services that can take your Airtable usage to the next level. Use promo code BuiltOnAir to receive $20 towards any product purchase.
In this episode, we talked to Abdul Alzanki, a Bay Area mobile app developer at Khan Academy, who's developed a series of no-code applets for Airtable called Mini Extensions. As a longtime Airtable user, Abdul discusses his path toward developing software and his goal to make Airtable even more accessible to beginners and experts alike. He explains how doing a simple coding exercise for his brother expanded to developing the now 18 extensions he provides on his website to the greater public, with even more on the horizon. Anything from downloading attachments in bulk to even machine learning is now possible thanks to his work. Abdul demos for us several of his tools in action, showing just how quickly you can add long-awaited features to your bases for a fraction of the cost of developing a custom web app from scratch. Good afternoon.
Hey, how's it going?
Going great. Thanks for coming on the podcast with us.
Thank you for having me.
So you are a software developer, right?
Yeah, I am a mobile engineer at Khan Academy.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
And I've been there for about a year and a half now. I was in the Bay Area before that. I was going to UC Berkeley to study computer science. And yeah, I've pretty much been coding since I was 14, I think, is when I started. So it's been a while now, but I was mostly initially starting with tools that are kind of no-code tools. So back in the day, there was a tool called Game Salad. I think they're still running too. They allow you to make sort of small iPhone games for cross-platform and etc. without writing any code. And I started with that when I was 14, and it was just like, as soon as I started, I was just so I really enjoyed the idea of making something from scratch, and that was my favorite thing. So yeah, I mean, it's been now like about 10 years of me just, progressively getting more and more into the software engineering industry. And yeah.
Great. So Khan Academy is a great resource for people to learn those sorts of skills for themselves. Are you helping with writing some of the courses that they provide, or do you do your coding for Khan Academy itself?
I do for the platform itself. So my main role is working on the mobile apps. So we've got a iOS mobile app and then an Android mobile app. And what I do is I build, the platform that the videos or the exercises and the articles run on.
Right.
I don't make any content myself.
Okay. Have you had any idea of what kind of Khan Academy course you would want to take?
There are a lot of really good ones. The ones that I really enjoy are around some of the art history or world history, or even some of the science stuff is pretty cool. So they do a bunch of, I guess we do a bunch of like videos of explaining kind of, concepts that usually you learn in school but are hard to grasp, and they become more about, how am I solving this problem rather than stepping back and actually seeing the full picture. So we've got a bunch of those, and those are probably my favorite because you can tell that Sal, the CEO, is like really interested in it. You can tell how much he's like really excited about the concept that he I remember in one of the videos, I think he says, if this doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what's wrong with you, or something like that. You know what I mean? Something in that realm. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really great. I love Khan Academy. I think they're an excellent resource, and one of the many different ways people can learn how to make custom solutions that they need for their own businesses themselves. Now, with you and your code writing, is this you said you started when you were 14 and you've continued on. You must have seen a lot of changes in the way people have approached writing code for apps and things. I just wanted to learn about your perspective on that.
Yeah, it's been very, very interesting to watch the changes. a lot of times the changes are more towards how the tooling has gotten better.
Yeah.
So here's a couple examples of this. Back when I started, even if I was a great programmer, it would take me a long time to make an app that today, let's say, would take me a third of the time to make.
Okay.
And the reason for all of that is, aside from the fact that the code itself got easier, like some languages got better, some languages got safer, like Apple released Swift, etc. There are a lot of things that just evolved in the sense of like, there are a lot of millions of programmers and they're sharing code. And the shared code is really what makes things so much easier to get started with today. Like if you're making an iPhone app, you used to have to write a single iPhone app, you can't use it on Android, etc. The current situation is, Facebook made this thing called React Native and everybody can use it, and it's open source and it's much, much easier to get started with. So that kind of transition has helped a ton. And then there's also a lot of on the back end side. So, you have like Firebase or services like that give you more or less, if you're just building an app yourself, an entire solution that you don't really have to go and make your own backend. You can just use theirs. And that kind of stuff really, really made things much easier.
Yeah. And I'm sure it lets you be more creative as well, since you don't have to worry about starting from scratch every single time.
Yeah. And it just produces a more like efficient system in general, right? Like the less time more of us have to do things that we all have in common, the better off everyone is. Right. So yeah, and just, even how good GitHub has gotten and how it's become so normal for a major big project to be kind of like on GitHub, open sourced, being financed by some company that is large. And yeah, it really is such a dramatic change from when I started. I had to the resources were limited. You couldn't find the things that you were looking for, and my English back then wasn't so great. So I'd be Googling things using the wrong terminology because, my first language is Arabic. So sometimes the word is translated slightly differently because you can have a word mean two things. So I would be, Googling forever on something that I'm not even using the right word for. So yeah, things have evolved. That's for sure.
That transitions into the work that you're doing, providing no-code solutions, so people don't have to make all of those Googling quests that you did, right?
Yeah, and I feel like there's a certain level of tooling that is so simple, but requires just a little bit of programming that if someone doesn't have any experience in programming, it can be really daunting and really hard to set up. And most people really, in the level of extensions that I'm making here are things that a normal programmer would be able to do in a couple of days. But instead of having only programmers have access to this, all of a sudden I make it once and everybody can use it.
Yeah.
And the plan here is really make as many of these as possible. Every time someone asks me for one, I'll just make it. And the goal is that hopefully if you have enough of these, then, there's sort of a library that everybody could use. And then we'd have less of you have to learn how to use an API to get this done. Yeah. Because really, I don't even want to learn how to use an API to get it done. No one wants to. So why bother?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you've noticed with the people who've made requests for you, although Airtable appeals to many people across all the different fields and the different sectors, there's a lot of similar requests that people may need. So I'm sure that has helped you form almost like your priority list for the types of extensions that you've made already. Is there some kind of process that you have with maybe selecting, well, I haven't really thought of anything from this perspective that might be common to this type of Airtable user?
Yeah, it has happened a couple of times. So the main push of me doing this was my brother is a big Airtable fan, and we did this together. So this mini extensions, I kind of he did like the WordPress part, the part that
Uh-huh.
you see the store, and
Yeah.
I did like the actual running of the jobs. So he had a problem a couple of years ago where he was trying to convert URLs to attachments on Airtable, and he just had such a hard time finding a solution because I think he told me that with the amount of records that he was trying to do, Zapier was costing like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
So I built a script for him that was sort of like you just run it in the browser, and it was super simple. I just gave it to him and it was like, yep, this will fix your problem. Go ahead and do it. And then a couple of months later, we realized that, oh, we've had a lot of cases of these, of like things that we want to solve for, but we couldn't find a really like effective solution for him. So
Right.
yeah, so in most of the couple of first extensions, that was the case. It was just us needing something, so we're like, we're gonna make it for us, and then other people can use it.
Yeah.
And then we kind of just went through the community forums and just started looking at what people were needing, what people were requesting, what are the most like some of the most requested features are actually like the most obvious.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are, yeah, you just got to like look hard enough and you'll find a lot. So one of them is downloading all of the attachments in a field, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's one of the ones that has like maybe 50 questions in the community forums.
Yeah.
So I focused mostly initially on those, and then the funnel now is getting thinner. So at this point, I'm starting to make extensions even without like anybody requesting them on the forum or anything. I just think, oh, something is useful and might as well make it, kind of a deal. But yeah, I'm really hoping that people would start requesting more. I've gotten a couple of requests, but not all that many. So I think that would probably be the best approach. I want to make sure that the approach is, okay, the first person who needs it gets it, and then everybody else, you know, forever can reuse this, and it'll, yeah. I'm excited about the idea of just people hitting me up and requesting more, because that's the most useful. Those are the most useful ones I've seen. When I try to think of my own, generally the the process isn't so great.
Yeah. Well, the way I use Airtable, I use it for like a couple very specific use cases. So it's always interesting seeing people request certain things. For instance, download all of attachments. For me, I can't think of a base where I really needed to do that, but I think that highlights an important feature of the work that you do generally, and with Airtable, is that there are so many different people who use it and use it in so many different ways. So, yeah, in your personal, do you use Airtable to kind of maybe help sort feature requests you may have gotten?
So the feature requests are as a form. So
Mm-hmm.
when you submit the form and it lands there, I haven't had to filter them because I haven't gotten all that many.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that I use Airtable for are more in the kind of like managing the project as we go. So my brother and I do a lot of like, you know, like just figuring out where everything makes sense and priority wise, and you know, what do we want to do next, things like that. But yeah, I've used Airtable in the past for more stuff. I've actually I've been using Airtable for a while, even though I've never been such a like I've never been an aggressive user of Airtable, but I've used it maybe for like 5 years, 6 years now.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see the evolution of, it started so simple and it has gotten so much more powerful, and so
Right.
many more things happen on it that are, it's just, it blows my mind how much can be done by the fact that, you know, they built it for the purpose of, we're going to make everybody be able to do things that typically only programmers
Sure.
were kind of like able to really do efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it.
I think I started Airtable the week they added blocks as a feature. So at first I was like, oh, this is useful. And then that massive update happened and I was like, this is suddenly the best product ever made. And every now and again, I will come across something like the work that you do that makes it even more applicable to me and all the people I might try and help set up their logistics and getting through their daily lives or getting through their work schedule, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was just
Yeah,
looking.
and what I'm actually excited about is the fact that by the fact that everyone is able to use Airtable, what'll happen is the engineering things will just have to be easier to use, right? And in that process, I think the engineering things will actually help me as a programmer, right? So if the tooling that used to be so hard that only engineers can use is now much easier, the way it's built is much easier, and the sort of like the foundations of how do you communicate with APIs, all of that, all of the simplicity that goes into Airtable makes my life as an engineer easier too. So yeah, I've been very impressed with how much their API has been pretty solid. So I'm glad to see how well they're doing.
Yeah. So I know you've been, working in this sort of in the Airtable space for some time now. Have you considered working with some of the other programs or online web apps that are often associated with Airtable? You mentioned Zapier earlier, and we know a bunch of different users rely on Zapier to pull in things from maybe QuickBooks or Google Calendar, that kind of stuff. Have you considered doing work for those types of services as well?
I have used those before, and I've actually even my brother was running a news account on social media that was kind of like, it was automated, and it was basing the automation on Airtable. And yeah, I've used those a lot, and they are very, very good. What makes me hesitant about a couple of the integrations is the cost, honestly, because
Yeah.
I wish it was, I had wished it was mostly a monthly rate, a flat rate. And that's why I made it this way, because I really, really like the idea of allowing users to build real kind of commercial applications on Airtable, or sort of like, you build a website or an app or whatever it is that uses Airtable as its foundation. And to do that, sometimes you have to have a lot of records. And if you have a lot of records, you can't, if you have a process that is happening every time a new record is being added and your whole website relies on this.
Right.
I had just wished it would be sort of like, here's a way to actually run your business without burdening you with how many records you have. Because the doing the math in your head is sort of what's scary about it a bit.
Yeah. And also with Zapier, the certain amount of runs you get per month, if you're in like the beta testing for your integration, you're going to eat through those very quickly. So again, great work that you've done that kind of circumvents that in a way that makes it more accessible to people and encourages them to continue building out their software needs.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what people are actually using these extensions for. I think that'll be really that would be the most satisfying, I think.
Yeah.
For me to know. Yeah.
All right. Well, if you're up for it, can we take a look?
Yeah, for sure. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. So this is the website. Okay.
Miniextensions.com. Okay.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of them at this point. We've got like 20. The idea is that each extension would have a single purpose, and it would be very obvious. So, bulk download everything, convert URLs to attachments, and you can go to an extension and you'll see it being used live in the videos. And you can even, like, for example, go and, view the resulting data. So for example, these are attachments that would get downloaded.
Yeah.
So I can go ahead and log in here to show you how it works in action. So probably one of the most popular ones so far has been this one, convert attachments to, convert URLs to attachments. So we've got two. We've got attachments to URLs and URLs to attachments. So in this one, the goal is to grab a bunch of URLs like this and convert them into, Airtable attachments over here. So if I remove these attachments, and then, and when you're using anything that integrates with Airtable, you'll always have to fill in a couple of things for like an API key and a couple of IDs. And
Sure.
they're pretty simple to find if people just follow the URLs there. And yeah, and then you can specify the names of the fields that have URLs in them. So let me split screen this so it's simpler to look at. So these are these fields, right? So these are the fields that have the URLs in them. And this is the name of the field that you want the resulting attachments to be in.
Right.
Go ahead and run this. And yeah, it might take a second here. And all of these extensions, well, not all of them, but the vast majority of them can be scheduled too.
Oh.
Okay, so here you go. So there are, these images will start processing in, but yeah, so the process is super simple. It's exactly what you think it does, and it gives you exactly what you think it does. That's the goal, kind of. Yep. There's not much fanciness to it, yeah, and like I said, you can schedule these, or you can also have a webhook, which is useful for cases where, let's say you have a form and then you want to you want the form submissions to trigger this job.
Sure.
So you want, after a form is submitted, convert this URL to attachment. Then you can do that with this. Or even if you want to sort of plug it into an existing integration with some third-party website, a lot of them will support webhooks too. So you can use that there too.
That's great. And you can do multiple fields to concatenate in the attachment fields. That's
exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And there is, let me show you the one for the bulk download. So this is right here. So this is for this base right here. And it's got a bunch of, these don't have to be images. So like you can see this is a movie.
Yeah.
But it's got a bunch of images, right? Like I think there's like over 1,000 here, like 1,300 or something. So the job just supposedly works very fast. So let's see how fast it works.
Well, it most certainly works faster than if you tried to do this individually.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So this is the only job that can't be scheduled, because I mean, like it doesn't make sense to schedule the download. Like it's hard to, I would have to email it or something. I'm still thinking about that, but yeah. So here's the zip file, and yep. So these are all the images, and yeah, like I said, you can have any sort of file. And
right.
These are mostly repeated images on purpose because, it's hard to add 1,300 images on demand.
I see they're like, they're prefixed with a 3-digit number, at least it looked like it. Is that the row number in Airtable?
Oh, those are just those are not the row numbers. And the reason why that's the case is because I wanted to solve for people who might have multiple images of like a single image that exists in multiple fields.
Oh, got it.
And to solve for that, I have to not have any duplicates in terms of names. So I just added that left number just to number the images. But yeah, if people have a better naming convention that I can use, I'm totally down to implement that too.
But that's super useful. I can think of a few ways I could use that.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm seeing you can, or a user can sort of build their, I guess, application using maybe one, maybe two, or even all of the extensions that you provide. So it's not a one-size-fit-all solution.
Yeah. So one of the things that I liked about this approach of solving like one problem in one extension is, in a lot of the integration websites, what they do is you can connect integrations and you stack them up, right?
Yeah.
The stacking up is a bit hard to explain to people sometimes. So what I wanted to do is I wanted the kind of, when you combine multiple things into one job, I wanted that process to happen on Airtable. So you can imagine for example, the first job that I showed you, which is convert URLs to attachments, doing the first part, and then you just run the second part with downloading the attachments. So the idea is sort of like the middle state is Airtable. So you can connect all of these together, but it's simple because Airtable is that middle state that holds what you want.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
So when you were creating this, was it always something that you thought about including the scheduling feature?
I didn't, but it's actually not the scheduling feature that surprised me of how useful it is, but it's the webhook. The
Ah,
webhook was like a definitely like afterthought, but it is probably it adds so much more power to this. So for those who are not familiar with webhooks, I can show you how what that means here. So if I want to run this same job that we ran earlier, we get a webhook here, and then this URL, when you open the URL, the job gets run. And
mm-hmm.
that means anywhere in the world that you can open a URL, the job gets run.
Ah, okay.
Which is yeah, it's a lot more powerful than I had originally thought when I was implementing the feature. It's nice when features surprise you.
Yeah.
So
So so it sounds like you had made this product or this service that takes kind of the guesswork out of a lot of common requests that someone might have, which might be useful for like most users, but you've made it even more useful for power users who are familiar with webhooks and make their own integration somehow. Adding that feature, I think, maybe has doubled the usefulness.
yeah, and I also feel like there will be in the future extensions where some of the extensions are not necessarily just a state from Airtable to a new state in Airtable.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, when you're downloading attachments, that's a kind of different kind of a service, right?
Sure.
So I'm thinking there will be a lot of things like that might be super interesting. Like you can imagine an extension that gives you like, you generate a landing page or something. So those sort of extensions I'm excited about because, the sky is the limit with those. Like who knows how simple yet powerful they can be. And I'm excited to explore that venue of like things that currently it's not even hard to do manually. It might even be impossible to do manually.
Yeah.
Those sort of things I feel would be really awesome to have in this kind of like mini extension kind of a deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm seeing one that says text sentiment analysis. Do you mind going over that one?
For sure. That's one of the ones I'm excited about. So this is, for those not familiar with text sentiment analysis, it's a process with machine learning where you grab some text, say you have a review of a product or something, and you want to categorize it. Is it a negative review? Is it a positive review? Is it a neutral review? And you can imagine doing this for a bunch of stuff, not just if it's positive or negative. You can imagine like, oh, is this a feature request? Is this a feedback? Is this a complaint? And this is done with machine learning, and we use this service called MonkeyLearn. And they've got, I'm very impressed by them. They've got a lot of like pretty sophisticated machine learning solutions, mm-hmm. and people can go and check it out. But yeah, they've got more than even just text sentiment analysis. But I'll go ahead and show you this running. See right here. So I'll delete these to rerun it. But yeah, so it grabs the input of the machine learning process is the field on the left here, which is kind of like the reviews.
Yeah.
And then the classification is saved here on the right, as you can see. Yeah. And wow. I when I first implemented this, it was just for text sentiment analysis. That's why I called it text sentiment analysis. But then I realized that there are so many more things that you can do on MonkeyLearn that I should probably rename this to like running machine learning on Airtable or something like that. Because yeah, it's one of my favorite ones. It's pretty awesome.
It seems like it could be very powerful. I think the first Airtable base I had made was to organize. I was in school and we had to do a survey of people, and I was collecting responses and trying to group them together. And it sounds like this would have made my life so much easier.
Exactly. And that's sort of, so the grouping is what's called in like artificial intelligence and machine learning as like classification.
Yeah.
And the classifiers, you know, there could be as many and as diverse as you'd like them to be. And they actually have, Monkeylearn has a process in which you can make your own classifier, which I haven't messed with because it seems like it's a bit involved, but it's like actually really cool that you can pretty much do sophisticated machine learning with no experience or understanding of machine learning whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. And again, something that even a super user I might think is not necessarily something possible, and yet in Airtable, and yet here it is.
Yeah.
Well implemented.
Yeah. And there's another one that I enjoyed and I was pleasantly surprised by was the PDFs one. So this does a PDF generation. So it generates PDFs with a website called DocoPilot.
Okay.
And let me pull it up here. So what it does is you want to turn every row in this table into a PDF document.
Yep.
So let's say like you want to get invoices or something. So this is an example of like invoices. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see like this is the name of the company. This is the name of like this column right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool. It takes you like define a PDF template and then you just like all at once generate like thousands of PDFs as much as you want. So this one is super, super exciting too.
For our audience, this is different from the page builder block because the page builder block, it doesn't put the PDF into the record. So it's not immediately available for download or to preview. You kind of have to open the blocks panel and find the record. So one of the features that I've been hoping for Airtable was a way of using Page Builder and to put it into an attachment field associated with that record. And again, here it is. You've already figured it out.
So yeah, exactly what you said. And to add to that, so you can have a completely automated process. You can imagine having a new field here that says email, right?
Yeah.
And then you can have another integration that sends the email. So all of a sudden you have a completely automated invoice system.
Right. Great. And you would set up the template for the PDF in DocuPilot, right?
Yeah, it's just like setting up a Word document and you
Sure.
just specify this is where I want this value to be and this is where I want this value to be. And it just, yeah.
Wow. Okay. I think this one might be my favorite.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's unpredictable sometimes which ones people like.
Well, everyone has such different use cases. I've been trying to make a running project database, not a project tracker, but to log all of the projects that my company has been doing for the past 60 years. And there's thousands of projects, and we just want a one sheet summary of them. And to generate, that one sheet, it'd be great if it was automatic. And I'm staring at a solution right now, and it makes me happy.
Nice. Yeah, I was also thinking, I haven't made this one yet, but I was also thinking it might be interesting to turn the entire table into a PDF somehow. But it's like, a lot of times I don't want to go ahead and make something without people asking me, because I'm like, I don't know what the use case is. Like, I don't want to do too much guesswork here. But yeah, I have a bunch of ideas in my head that I'm trying to like see if they're even like, because I know they're possible, but are they useful? Like, you can imagine doing this, but you get a website, like you get a URL to a page here, right? Like imagine if instead of the PDF, you get a URL and you can send your customer or whatever the URL, and it's like a nice looking web page where it shows you the invoice, stuff like that. But yeah, it's hard sometimes to filter through what are good ideas and bad ones. So
yeah, I can understand that. I think for what you just described, maybe not a listing of all records, but I could see the usefulness of like a filtered view, for instance, if you have it set up to do overdue tasks, for instance. Maybe you want just a snapshot of all of them. And then you might be able to do that with the scheduling feature you mentioned. Maybe it does it just once a month on the 31st or something to give you a list of all your overdue tasks.
Yeah, actually, let me show you the options for the scheduling feature too.
Mm-hmm.
So, so far I've made it to have these 4 options. So you can run it every 4 hours, every day, every week, every month. And I'm even considering maybe it's hard to scheduling can be expensive, and I'm trying to like make this be like in total. I want this to be a cheap thing for people to use. So I don't, if I have to, if I say, oh, you can schedule it every 15 minutes, I might have to like increase the prices because the servers costs money. So
of course.
So right now this is it. But if anybody needs more, reach out to me. I'm very open.
Wow. I am blown away. Thank you so much for sharing this with me and with the podcast, with all of our listeners. We will make sure that we will put it out there. If you just wanted to plug your website one more time, and if you're available on any social media or anything, any ways they can contact you, go for it.
Sure. So the website is miniextensions.com. I'm not all that much of a social media user, but if you go on miniextensions.com, there's a little chat bot. Well, it's not a bot, it's me. So just hit on the chat thing and start talking to me. And yeah, I'm pretty responsive. So yeah.
Okay, great. One more time, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Great.